Our next presenter is Lee Chambers of Jetlag Pictures, and he's here from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. And Lee has written and directed a lot of films over the last 20 years, and with executive support from 3 Academy Award winners, including Roger Corman. He has guided over 2,000 short films to completion as a college film professor in Canada. And along with making films, Lee is also a popular motivational speaker. He's going to motivate us all today. He's a panel moderator and a juror at film festivals in the USA, Canada, Australia, England, Iraq, and the Cayman Islands. That's quite a geographical spread there. His debut feature, The Pineville Heist, is currently on release around the world, and I'm sure you'll hear a bit more about that. And his presentation, Tangible, The Switch from the Physical to the Digital. Please welcome Lee Chambers.
Thank you very much. First off, I'm gonna set myself a timer so I can try to stay on time and on schedule. I hate standing behind a podium. Hate it. So I'm gonna move around a bit. Hope you don't mind. Digital, a lot of people talk about marketing. They've been talking about putting stuff out, but there's also the capture format. There's that aspect of the digital world. When I started as a filmmaker, I was traditionally trained. It was physical film stock, and I was kind of an anorak to, once I demystified the process of being a filmmaker shooting on celluloid, that's it. It was like important that was my format. And when I decided a long time ago I wanted to make a feature, but it took me a long time to do it because it's an expensive business. I chose an art form that is expensive. I could have been a painter and I could have just painted stuff and tried all day long, but I chose something that's very expensive. And the Pineville Heist movie that I did took from conception to the time when it actually came out, it took 8 years to do. I went through the gauntlet of trying to find money in Canada, Telefilm, OMDC, Northern Ontario Heritage in Ontario, and I got nowhere. The weakest part of the project was me, because I was an untested feature film director. I was a nobody. Great that you've done shorts, but you have never proven yourself as a feature film director. And so when I was 8 years ago, it was like, well, I'm gonna make a feature film, and we'll just shoot it on, if you can't afford it, just shoot on video. And I was stuffy. I was like, I'm not shooting it on video, I'm a filmmaker. I'm not shooting on video. Of course, we all know what happened. Technology changes, it gets better. The average person can't tell the difference between something shot on 35 mil and an Arri Alexa anymore. A cinematographer maybe, but the average person doesn't. And I realized that the important thing was the story. The content is the most important thing. And if somebody's really engaged in the material that you're presenting to them, they're not going to be that picky about the format in many ways. So I became a video filmmaker, and I had to suck it up. And then a number of years ago, even before I made it, someone said, are you going to get on Netflix? I'm not going to go on Netflix. I'm a theatrical filmmaker. I want to be in cinemas. Right? Now it's like, give me a Netflix deal. I'll take it, right? How can I get eyeballs on the work that I'm doing was the important thing. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And you know, I do a lot of workshops that are film related, and it was interesting looking at all the people that are here today because it's a wide variety. And when I started putting together my plan, I actually have done workshops at literary festivals where I talk about ebooks and delivering literary content in a digital world, and I started working on that, and then I was worried that I was going to talk about that aspect a little bit too much, and you'd all be filmmakers. But I realized this variety is good. It actually works out really well. So I'm from Sault Ste. Marie. I live in Thunder Bay, Ontario. I teach at Confederation College, and I'm an author, screenwriter, director, presenter, designer, film professor. You know, in this business, you're a master of all sorts of different things in order to get your stuff done. When I was struggled to try to find the money to make my movie, and you get nowhere, you realize that you have to be inventive. You have to almost do things in a way that you learn a little bit about legal aspects and contracts and distribution, all that kind of stuff was really important to if you can't just go and make a movie and then go, well, just put it out there. You have to understand all the facets of production from concept all the way to the very end when you actually are trying to get people to watch it. So, you know, where have you seen me before? You probably haven't seen me ever, right? I was in Hitchcock, yeah, sure. Right, I drove E.T. home. This is a little bit of fun. This is LA at Madame Tussauds, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist having a little bit of fun. So anyway, I mentioned ebooks. And when I was working on my film, when you have a screenplay, it is a blueprint document that is, when you send it out to somebody, the thing you get is, we will not accept unsolicited material, right? Because it's unpublished. It's a blueprint for the film that you want to make, and that's a struggle because who reads screenplays? Producers, directors, actors. So it was difficult. And it was by accident, purely by accident, where an actor who I was going to have attached to my film asked me some questions about the town of Pineville, okay? So, what's this town? What's the history like? Tell me about the character. You know, an actor wants information fed to them. And I wrote 3 pages of the history of this town, which is purely fictional. And at the end of it, I thought, it's kind of like I just novelized a chunk of my movie. So I novelized the entire screenplay and put it out into the world. And the great thing about this is you can walk up to someone and go, here, take this. I gave a copy of my book to Rob Reiner. Everybody was trying to give him scripts, can't touch it, talk to my lawyer, right? And I go, here you go, there's a scene in here that's you'd really like, and we talked. He goes, oh, great, thanks, stuck it in his bag, because it's released. It's out there. And that's the thing, it's not just you have a film, you might have a film that could also be a book, that could also be an album, that could be the score online. It could be distributed in multiple formats in multiple ways. So don't just think about you have a piece of creative content that is one thing. It could be many things, and you can use those to cross-promote each thing. This is the story I love about ebooks, was J.K. Rowling, when she was selling the Harry Potter series, at the time that when she was getting her deal for Harry Potter, it was traditional print book, that was the main thing. She held on to the ebook rights. And the publisher thought, who reads ebooks? Like, what's an ebook? Like, what's a digital right? It didn't really matter, so she held on to it. She obviously made a ton of money selling books, and the movies helped sell more books, and it made her a ton of money. But because she kept the ebook rights, she's now worth over $1 billion, right? And then she released those books again, and she holds those rights for them. One of the things about releasing something, whether it's a book, a movie, and you're doing it independently, is getting over the negativity the publishing world tries to push upon self-published authors. I sent out the manuscript from my book based on the screenplay. I sent it out to publishers, ton of them, and I have a lovely pack of rejection letters. I got 2 said they were interested in doing it, and they said, we can maybe fit it in our catalog in 4 years. Because there's only so much space on the shelf. They've already got books lined up that are ready to go. That didn't work for me. Waiting 4 years? I waited 8 years for my movie, but I wanted this book out. So I did the research, found out where I could get it out into the world. I did it on my own. And to me, I get the, oh, you just did it yourself. It's not real. It's still real. It may not be Random House. It may not be something that is mass-produced like you normally see, but it's still real. It still has reviews. It still has good content to it. And it's like that. Do you only go to chain restaurant stores? Oh, he's not part of a chain. The food can't be any good. The food can still be good. So the thing is, if you have a piece of content, you may not have the budgeting power to be able to actually push and promote it, so you have to be inventive and you have to be creative. Obviously, social media has made this great for us now. I mentioned it already. Good quality content is number 1, full stop. Content is king. Creating something, you know, the tools right now are great for us to be able to make anything we want. The cost of making a movie, the cost of doing things has driven down. People can edit on their laptops, people can shoot on their phones, but you still have to have the content up here. It still needs to be fresh and original that draws an audience. The great thing about going digital as opposed to distributing stuff in a physical format is you don't need to worry about the stock, you don't need to worry about shipping, getting paid royalties, all that kind of stuff is a different dynamic when you're dealing with pushing a product out digitally. For example, the book, the ebook, the paperback, a movie in Blu-ray, DVD, or just putting it online for someone to stream. Obviously, there's benefits and advantages to both. People love tangible though, right? People still love tangible. I asked my students this week, it was the first week of school. The reason I'm here is because I don't teach Wednesdays. So I got up at 3 a.m. to fly here, and I have to fly back because I have class tomorrow. And I asked my students who bought a DVD or Blu-ray recently, and some of them still do, but the numbers are dropping regularly because some people are like, but I still really want, I want to hold it. And I have an Apple TV box, and it's only been in the last, say, year or two where I go to somewhere and I can buy the Blu-ray for it for 20 bucks, and I go home and it's 15 on the Apple box, and I think, oh, fuck it, so slowly I've got a library of iTunes stuff on there because it's just quick and easier and it's faster. I don't have to drive to the store and all that kind of stuff. With regards to the ebook, you don't have to, in order to sell 50,000 copies of the book, you physically have to make 50,000 books. So there's the manufacturing cost that is different. You don't have to ship them around. Same thing with film distribution. It used to be big metal tins, right? So if you were going to release a mass-marketed movie to 3,000 cinemas, they'd have to make 3,000 prints. They'd have to be two big tins that they'd have to lug around to get into the cinema to put on the big platter to show in a cinema, right? Poof. Overnight, that's almost gone. Digital. It's digital now. You don't have to do that. You're saving the cost of making the prints that way. You're also obviously saving the cost on FedEx and Perlator shipping them around to 3,000 cinemas. It's saving a lot of money. So your words in many formats, whether it's a paperback, an ebook, an audiobook, a movie, iTunes, an app, a game, whatever it is. And if you can find a way to brand across all the different platforms, from not just from selling an object or an item, but also the social media aspect. Find a way to blend them together. That's obviously a good thing. Self-publishers can quickly adapt to shifts in the market. It took me 2 days for me to switch the cover of my Amazon on my book on Amazon. This was the release version of the book. Before I shot it, I didn't have the actors attached to it, and then eventually I changed it. So this one, because I had an actor attached to it, I've changed it 5 times. If I'm going with a traditional printer, I have to print thousands of copies of the book, and then I have to wait till they're all gone to change the cover to reprint. The way I did it with CreateSpace was the ability to, I can buy 1,000 or I can buy 1. I can change the cover every day if I want to. You know, if I suddenly get a review from New York Times or whatever, and I want to stick it on the front cover of the book, I can change it in less than a day. I can change it and it is up. I met somebody who printed their own books, and they got 1,000 copies printed, and someone told them, oh, you spelled something wrong on the cover. You still have 999 books to get rid of before you can consider changing it. And so digital obviously is a much easier thing. As the owner of I control the Amazon worldwide for the rights for the book. I can turn countries on and off, click worldwide. I can make the price reflective and relative the same all across the board. So if it's $5 in Canada, it's the same relative in other countries, or I can go in individual countries and say, just for fun, I had a friend who lived in Australia, and he was like, oh, is your book available? Yeah, it's on the Amazon Australia site. Before I did that, I raised the price to $900. So he messaged me back and said, holy shit, your book is super expensive. I'm like, it's really worth it. And I was just get your credit card out and you'll really enjoy it. And I changed it back, but I had a little bit of fun. I took a screen grab of the $900 price. He didn't buy it. He didn't buy it though. It would have been great if somebody did. Releasing something isn't enough, right? You need to, the last presenter talked about things like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. All of those things are great. Are you going to get a obviously you should get the website and all those things. Nowadays you can template those things that are a lot easier than actually going and spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to get a fully functional site. You can now find a lot of template sites that are a fraction of the cost that, they'll be somewhat unique, but it'll save you a lot of money. Are you going to use a PR agency? You need to do those things, right? Branding, right? Branding your Facebook pages so that they look like your content, so people slowly start recognizing the material that you have. So all of this is just the idea of what the Amazon page looks like compared to the Facebook page or compared to the website. They all look the same, right? Reviews don't just happen on your own. Engage with book bloggers and reviewers. Go out there and actively try to find them. Giveaways, anything you can do to try to get people engaged in the material that you have. This is an interesting thing about ebooks. For every 9 books I sell on Amazon, I sell 1 on the other sites. Okay, and that's combined. Amazon is the #1 seller of ebooks, just full stop. Kobo is primarily a Canadian source, but I don't sell a lot of ebooks on Kobo in Canada. I sell most of them on Amazon. So print options, for example, you can print them yourselves, but when I looked at doing the print option, I mentioned the whole printing 1,000. Amazon has a company called CreateSpace, and you can print 1 or 1,000, and it's always the same price. And the price point break was 1,000. So, the idea is you print more, the cost goes down. So a company a couple companies I found and said, how much for 1,000? The price that they gave me that would have been the per unit cost was the same as me using CreateSpace, where I can print 1. So I can print 1, test it, doesn't look very good, throw it away. Fix the cover or issue, fix the mistake, upload it again, and get 1 shipped to yourself to make sure it works out well. You like it, great, leave it up there, and people can go and buy it. 1,500. So 1,500 was the price point, right? As opposed to beginning stuck with 1,500 that have a mistake in it. To date, I have only printed 2,500 books, physical books. I've changed the artwork 5 times. You wouldn't be able to do that with a traditional printer, right? And paperbacks aren't making me money, but I like the tangible, right? To gain exposure, I use services like Kindle Nation Daily, Kindle Book Review, Digital Books Today, Indie Reader. So I did a lot of research to find out where people are finding ebooks. Where does someone who has a book, where do they go to get their books? I combine that with social media campaigns on a number of different sites, Tweet Your Books, World Literary Cafe, Kindle Finds, and engaged a ton of book bloggers to push people into finding where my book was. Did it work? Well, my goal, this goes back to 2012. In April 2012, I had, my goal was 1,000 downloads in a 3-month period. I thought that would be great. Because here's the thing, when you release something on you release it in a cinema, and unless there's a campaign for people to know that it exists, they're not going to go. They need to somehow be aware of it, right? Just like when I released the ebook and the paperback onto Amazon, I'm not on the home page. Now, I don't know if you go to Google and you search something and there's 17,000 pages. If you're on page 400, who clicks through to get to you? Nobody, right? The only way that you're going to get that is if the search is that specific enough to actually find you, or you're in the top few pages. How many pages do you go down? Like if you're searching something, do you go 2 or 3 pages, right? That's probably where it sits. So I had this goal on April 1st, 2012 to do 1,000 downloads by July 1st. I did a full campaign. I probably spent about $200 doing this campaign, where it was like a Facebook ad on one Kindle site and another, and a little banner site thing on something else. And I got bloggers to say, I'm doing this thing, if you do a story on me, I'll give you books to give away and whatnot. I gave away a lot of books. I gave away free books, right? But the promotion of free books led to thousands of paying customers. I got to page 1 on Amazon. Page 1 on Amazon. This is the numbers. See that? 26,000 at 35% royalty at $1.99 a book. Okay? Now, that's a lot. The campaign I did, actually not all of those were, there's a whole chunk of those that were free, and then I remember it was a Easter, and the campaign came out, and I logged online in the morning because I know everyone was launching this social media stuff. I logged online onto Amazon, clicked into my account, and there had been 100 downloads, and I was giddy. Woo! 100 people bought my book. Woo! It was awesome, right? And I clicked again, and it was 112. I'm like, what? And I clicked again, it was 114, and then it was 125. And all day long, I kept refresh, more. At its peak, 750 clicks an hour. I was sandwiched between, what was the book? Hunger Games books. So anybody who went to Amazon, their homepage, my book was between 2 Hunger Games books. So it's, someone's looking for books, they go, oh, click. They didn't need to look for me. I was there. I was on the page. So that's the power of it. That's the power of if you can get yourself to that page and you have a captive audience of a ton of people going to that site, because they're not going to go to page 400 or page 12 or maybe even page 8. You know what I mean? They're going to go to the first few pages. So that's what happened. So you can see that, I think I found one of the screen grabs where I was #1 in the mystery category, #2 in ebooks and espionage, whatever, and thrillers. So the numbers did really well. There's the Hunger Games page, right? So Catching Fire, Mockingjay, Hunger Games, and there I am on the bottom there. Yeah, when you're on the homepage of Amazon, you get a lot of clicks per hour. It doesn't happen by chance, right? I didn't wait for this to happen. I did the right things to hit the goal, right? You can't sit there and go, hey, I have a goal to get 1,000 downloads and then just hope people show up. You have to be proactive. You have to move forward to do something. You have to buy a lottery ticket in order to win the lottery. What happened just prior to that was that I managed to engage and get an actor from the Twilight series to be in the movie. He has over 200,000 active Twitter followers. I did book signings in LA and various places. He came to the book signings. He engaged his Twitter followers, which, if you know, Twilight girls, 15-year-old girls are they're like crazy, right? Well, that created a massive fan base for the Pineville Heist Twitter page, where suddenly I jump up to 50,000 people following me. Interestingly enough, by the time we go and shoot the movie, he ended up doing an X-Men movie and then couldn't do my movie, and I had to get another actor. But I had engaged the audience with the material. They were now, even though he departed from the project, people were now engaged in the material. They liked the story about the kid in the woods with finding the bank money, and so I kept maintaining the audience base because they liked it, right? So that was him tweeting out to his fans. Last month, Pineville Heist went to #3, right? So that's him telling him. So we peaked in 2012, and sales have slowly declined, but our ebook sales have been declining. There was a big thing back in 2011, 2012. I was on the right end of a wave, and that was, they were spelling the death of paper. Like, no one's ever going to buy a book ever again. Everybody's going to have an e-reader. No one's ever going to buy a book. And the thing is, actually, it got to a peak, and now ebook sales drop a little bit, and then people buy paper. And I think it depends what you're doing with it. I had a friend who bought me a Stephen King book, big, thick book. He's like, I got you this book, physical book. And I love tangible. I love the book. But if I'm going to travel, it's a pain in the ass to bring a big Stephen King book around, right? So I went and bought it on ebook so I can read it. I never read the physical version because it's a pain when you're traveling to carry it around. Audiobooks are proving more popular as well. I buy audiobooks now because I can read, they're in the car, they're constantly, because I had, I'm basically spending 6 hours to get here, 6 hours to get home to spend an hour with you. I can read a whole book on the plane, right? Now, when we talk about movies, obviously things have changed. Faster download speeds have changed for distribution, as it did for movies, as it did for books, right? I mean, years ago, when I got the NHL Center Ice to watch hockey. I don't have a cable package. Anybody got a cable package anymore? One person, two, three, oh, few people. Wow, okay, so I got rid of my cable package, but I really wanted to watch hockey. I don't need all the other stuff, but I want to watch hockey. When I first got it, it was fuzzy at times. It cut out a lot. It was a pain, and I said, it sucks. Next year, I'm not getting the NHL Center Ice anymore because the service is crappy. But of course, a year goes by, and the internet speeds get better. Things get better. So now it's like fantastic. Just like now, everything I watch is on Netflix or Crave or the NHL Center Ice because the speeds have changed, right? You look at Netflix, started in 1999 with DVDs. I think some countries still, where they don't have the internet structure, still use the DVD service, not very many. But in 2011, they had 23 million subscribers to their streaming service. That's $208 million a month at $2.4 billion a year. And if you consider that the theatrical market in Canada, or not Canada, domestically in Canada and North America is about $11.1 billion. And Netflix at that point in 2011 was doing a quarter of what the theatrical market is doing. 2013, the year they launched House of Cards, they jumped up to 31 million. And last year they're at 83 million subscribers over 190 countries. So they're bringing in $7.7 billion a year, right? 8 billion, considering that's $8 a month. How is that sustainable? It's a lot of people spending their $8 a month in order for them to do that. Netflix spent $5 billion on original content in 2016. Netflix followed the model that HBO did with Sopranos. So HBO, Showtime, they have a platform to be able to show stuff. They buy movies, people would get the service to have it. Then they realized, well, how do we engage and get people to come specifically to us? They create a program that you can only watch in that format. We create House of Cards that you have to watch on Netflix, so you get it, right? And what do? They launched it so that you have to buy you get the entire season all at once, right? So you could, in effect, pay $8 for Netflix, binge watch House of Cards, cancel Netflix, right? You could. But sometimes now you see they're doing things where they launch an episode every week like they do on a traditional broadcasting system. So it covers over a 2-month period. So now you're paying $16 for 2 months of Netflix, and then they're hoping that you're going to forget and you just keep watching stuff, right? And eventually you're still doing it. But that's a lot of money, right? $7 billion a year. So they're in theatrical, you're talking about, for Netflix, they spend $5 billion on content. They stick it on hard drives. Right? So they're in cinema, they have a lot of real estate. They have cinemas that need heating, power, employees, all that kind of stuff in order to generate it. Where Netflix, they have hard drives. They stick it on a hard drive. With the book, 2,500 copies of the book I printed physically. It's in ebook, audiobook, and paperback. I only printed 2,500 of these. All the rest are digital formats. Now, when I printed these, I physically have to spend money to make them, and then I have to ship them to the store. Now, I did find a distributor who handled, we really only did Manitoba and Ontario for the physical, and then I got some agreements in some stores in Australia. I have to cough up the money to print them, I have to ship them to them, and then they sell them. I have to wait forever for them. They take half of the money because because of the store. And by the time you're done, I make more selling an ebook than I do a paperback. And if I want to go global with a physical copy, it's a huge, huge expense. But if I want to go global with digital, I put it on a server like Amazon, and I got emails from around the world. India, Austria, Sweden, all the world, people saying, my son loves your book, and people email me because you're engaging with a global audience with a simple click. And I physically didn't make it. I have to physically make one, and I didn't have to ship it to the store. And once I upload it onto the server, unless I want to make a change, I don't need to do anything else ever again once it's there. Of course, if you want to maintain the sales, you need to create more content, you need to market and promote it as well. If you're a filmmaker and you're selling your films around the world, you need to think of things like having money for deliverables, for making your versions to be able to sell them around the world, for E&O insurance, that kind of stuff. So when I finished making my movie and it got picked up by a distributor, they always say, save enough money for post, right? Everyone gets to try to get their movie made, and they don't have any money, but they get every money they get to try to get the film captured. And then they get to post, and then they realize there's all these other costs in post-production that I don't have any money in there. But then there's also this stuff. There's things like deliverables when your sales agent or your distributor says, we need you to create a 4x3 version, and we need you to create this version and that version, and make sure we need it in Spanish subtitles, and we want all these different things. And those things cost money. And E&O is one that gets a lot of independent filmmakers where you don't have a lot of money, and a distributor a lot of times won't take your project unless you have E&O insurance to protect you from potential lawsuits. And that is, whether you're a huge film or whether you're just a small little independent film, E&O insurance is, I don't know, 5, 10 grand. 5 and 10 grand is costly for someone who doesn't have a lot of money for the movie in the first place. So when you're negotiating with a distributor, can you ask them to cap marketing expenses, right? Can they cover some deliverables? Can they cover E&O? Will they offer an MG? When I was looking at trying to get the distribution deal for my movie, and here's the thing with Canada that I find really frustrating in Canada, is when you're trying to finance a movie, and you go to one of the funders and you say, I'll use you three here. You're a financer, you give money. I go, I want money. And you go, we have to protect our investment. What we want to ensure is there's going to be a distribution deal in place. We need that, right? Oh, okay, so then you're a distributor. I need you on board so that I can get this financing. And you go, you know what, but if we're going to distribute your movie, we need to be sure that you've got the talent attached to it. So if you can attach Bradley Cooper to it, we're in. So then I go over here to Bradley Cooper and I say, Brad, do you want to be in my movie? Because in order for me to get the distributor to then trigger the financing, I need you on board. And you go, yeah, sure, just once you get the money. So you're in this circle, right, where nobody wants to be the first in, and you chase your tail trying to do it. It's frustrating, extremely frustrating. Well, so when I did my movie, I got a couple of Canadian offers and an American offer actually 2 American offers for my film. They sent over the contracts, and I have no legal background, whatever, but if you're going to be a filmmaker, do a little bit of research, engage with a lawyer or attorney or spine or something. I looked at it and literally, they've got so much money for marketing expenses, and I just sent an email back, can we cut those in half? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can you offer an MG? Well, we don't normally offer an MG, a minimum guarantee. And I'm like, well, I want one. Like, I want a minimum guarantee, so if you want my product, the content that I created. Before digital, who ever pirated a book? Anybody pirate a book? No, because before it was digital, it would have been too costly for you to sit there and photocopy the entire book. It's cheaper for you to buy the book, right? But then hard drives costs go down, net speeds increase, right? So now, years ago, people wouldn't pirate a movie. Like you could, when they were, people were stealing songs because there were only 3 megabytes a song, so you download the song, it's no big, but a movie was a huge file. and before the download speeds and storage speeds were there, nobody would be pirating it, but then everything drops, and then that's the problem with what happens with the industry. In the 14 years I've been teaching at the college, I sort of do this quiz with my students where, this is a little USB stick, right? It's got 8 gigabytes on it. 14 years ago, if this had 250 megabytes, I'd be, I can store like all these songs in it. Now it's like I can store movies and all sorts of stuff, right? So if that's just in the last, say, 10, 15 years, what's going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years from now, right? Where are we headed? Where is this going? What's that? Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Things change so fast. But what always maintains the same is up here, the creative. What is the idea? What is the content that we're doing? I'm monitoring the time so I can be like almost bang on. So you look at technology, I like looking at this and saying, okay, cassette recorders, VCRs were invented in 1970. A lot of times things are invented a lot earlier than you may have thought of, but they don't catch on. It's supply and demand, right? The first VCR that came out was a lot of money. Who's going to buy that? And until enough people buy them and they realize it's going to be a piece of technology that catches on and the price drops, then more people can afford them, the more people. Like now, if you go and buy a DVD player from Walmart, you can probably get one for 20 bucks, right? They're cheap, right? Because the supply and demand, the ability for doing it. Video cassette, compact discs were only 1981. DVDs, when did they come out? Does anybody know DVDs? 91? 96. 96. Blu-ray was only 2003. And it's already on its way out. iPads and little smart tablets are only 8 years ago. That's it. 8 years ago, that's when they were launched on the world. How many people have an iPad or something, or a Samsung Tab thing, whatever? Probably about 3/4 of you have one, right? And again, costs go down. When they first came out, they were a lot of money. How about a 3D television? Everybody got a 3D television? Yeah, see? Oh, one person. But do you watch it? Do you use it? You do? Okay, so if in this room, and we're all technologically savvy, I'm hoping, only one person is watching a 3D television, you can see why they're not catching on, right? You can see why that's happening. There's not enough demand. Here's just some good links for you if you're interested. Obviously if you're into IMDb, you should have an IMDb profile. You should keep it updated. If you're looking for box office information, I use Box Office Mojo all the time. And if anyone's into ebook marketing or trying to sell ebooks, or you've got a movie idea, or you have something and you say, like I mentioned, if you have a piece of content, what if you release it in another format, right? From a movie, screenplay to a book or something. So those are some of the ones I mentioned. By all means, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, right? On Twitter, I'm at Lee Chambers. If you look up Pineville Heist, which is my movie, or look up pinevilleheist.com, you'll see my trailer for my movie, whatnot. I'll let you guys go and watch it on your own. I do have copies of my card if anybody does want them. By all means, I'm happy to have private conversations afterwards with anybody as well after. Questions? Does anybody know where this still is from? Does anybody recognize this movie, this TV set? No. 12 Monkeys. That's the 12 monkey chair. I was sitting in the 12 monkey chair. I've got 2 copies of the book. One of them is the old one. One of them is the newer one, which has Boo Boo Stewart's. I'm going to leave them up here, and whoever manages to go up there and get them, they're yours. Any questions from anybody? Anybody? Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Mr. Craig always have a question, apparently.
That's good.
If you had to, I don't know if you could narrow it down, but if you had to maybe pick 2 sort of marketing activities that pushed your book sales the most, which do you think would be? Would it be like the involvement of that guy from Twilight?
Totally, because that was, he totally, because that was, I mean, not, that wasn't technology, but that's just, and how I got to him was I was on IMDb looking at people that I thought could look like my character, like who, and I saw this kid, and I'm not like a Twilight fan or anything, but I had looked at him, I go, this guy looks like the kind of character who'd be in my movie. And then I read, oh, he's been in this, and then when you go to if you pay for the pro version, you can see their agent details and you can email them. There was a direct phone number. And so I got my phone and, hello? And his dad answered the phone. And he manages and whatever, and we talked, and I go, well, send over the screenplay. I sent over the screenplay, and then that developed the relationship from there. So that was one, which was get out of your comfort zone, do the research, make the calls. If you don't do those things, nothing's going to happen. So if you don't know something, educate yourself about it to make sure you know what's going on. And then Facebook was the big one, because the site that I used has all these different advertising services for connecting authors with readers who have Kindles. And I paid, I think it was like $100 for a 3-day thing where they posted about a link on their feed on the thing. And when they posted that out at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then that's when all of a sudden click, 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 yeah. So it was huge. It was a service, a private site called Kindle Nation Daily. So they're basically just a hub for people who have Kindles who go to them. Anybody else? Excellent. Look at that. What's my time here? 43. I still have a minute and a half. I'll tell you one really good story, which I love telling, because I mentioned about educating yourself. And that was when the kid that I eventually had in the movie was Australian. And when he was coming over here, I was a low-budget movie, right? I wasn't millions, I was way lower than that. But I had this kid from Australia that coming over. Parents were worried about immigration issues. So we want to make sure that he has a work permit. We want to make it legal. So I call up a couple of immigration lawyers and find out that it's like $5,000, right? Or we can get you a work permit for this Australian kid, but it's going to be about $5,000, and I can get it in about 10 days. Okay, but there's 2 Australian kids, so it's $10,000. So I'm freaking out because I don't really have the money for this. So what did I do? I spent a day becoming an immigration lawyer. I spent a day researching, calling people up, doing all this stuff, and eventually got someone from someone who deals with it, who actually handles the paperwork. And I go, oh, what can I do? And he's warning me it's going to take me 3 months. Well, I shoot in like 2 months. What am I going to do? She goes, well, normally it takes 3 months, but if all you need to do is on the paperwork, you just put. She told me who to address it to, that it is, because it's film industry and we kind of work on our own timelines, it'll go to someone who will basically prioritize it. And so she told me to do this. And the paperwork, the lawyer's not going to do, he's going to give it to a paralegal who's going to fill it out. It's going to basically drop in some information, fire up the information. So I did what she told me to do. I filled out all the paperwork, I sent it in. 3 days later, she called me and she goes, in one area, you really want to fix something. She just gave me this advice that I know you're low budget, but you have to select, the way you've done it is going to get rejected. So she told me how to just massage it so it worked better for me. And so instead of paying $10,000 for immigration for 2 kids to come over, I had to pay just the government fees, which were about $600, and I saved myself $9,000 or whatever. I called it my $10,000 day. I spent a day educating myself and I saved $10,000. It was totally worth it. And that's the thing is, at the end of this whole process, you have to be willing to be, if you're a content creator, you can't just, I make stuff and then think the world's going to come to you and throw money at you. They're not. You have to market, promote, you have to be open to networking with people, and you have to be open to educating yourself on way beyond what you want to do. But anyway, thank you very much for having me, and cheers.